Um, Good afternoon, everybody. Hope
Hi.
you're well. I'm going to mute everybody's microphones. Otherwise, it's going to get really too annoying in here. Cool. So I don't want that. I just want speaker. So why am I not up there? Mute all should just mean that I should be up there. Why am I not? If you've got your mic on, could you log it off, please? I'm seeing a couple of people's mics on, even though I'm muting them. Some people's mics coming up. And it's going to be a bit counterproductive. So if you don't mind, if you have a mic on, could you mute it, please? Thank you. Person there, mute your mic. Thank you. There you go. Okay, good. Yeah. Hi, everybody. I hope you're all well. Whilst people are joining and people are coming in, I won't do anything yet in terms of the surgery, but I'll just make some points that I think are important to make now. Can you all hear me okay? Just put your hand up, thumb up if you can hear me okay. Because actually right now I can't hear myself. Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you, Antoinette, for confirming that for me. So I think it's really important for me to point out for you all now that these are not singing lessons. Not singing lessons. It is purely a surgery type scenario that will help you with any particular problems that you might be having with your voice. I'm only going to give you advice and guidance on that. It's not necessarily, sorry. Sorry, give me a second, guys. I'm trying to double up with Instagram. It isn't working. There you go. Okay. Somebody's turned their mic back on again. Please try to keep your mics off if you don't mind. Last person to unmute themselves. No. That'll do it. That'll do it. Okay, cool. So hi to everybody on Instagram. We're doing a live stream on Zoom, and I'm just doubling up on Instagram. So any of you those who think I'm ignoring you, I'm not ignoring you. Hi, Antoinette. Welcome along. So basically, what I said before, these are not lessons. This is a surgery to help you understand perhaps a little bit more about a particular vocal problem that you might be having and help you to come to a better understanding of how you might solve it or why it's happening. So I'm not going to give you a solution and a regime to get to actually come to terms with it, just to help you understand it more. If you really want to know more about what we've spoken about in the session today, then you really should be thinking about taking lessons, because you can't solve things within a context of a surgery. I could only give you comments, but in order to get to the real nitty gritty of what's happening with your voice, we would have to have a one-on-one or a group session scenario at least. So these are not for that. So I just want to manage your expectations accordingly, so that you know that I'm not trying to, at this point, teach you about your voice, more help you to understand any particular vocal problems that you might have. Hi, Jaden, how are you? My nephew. Get Shagun Tour. Hi, how are you? I'm gonna try and avoid interacting with Instagram too much, because I want to stay focused on what I'm doing. So what I have done, those of you who have received invitation from me on WhatsApp, you will know that I offered you the opportunity to pose problems or stroke questions earlier on this week, and most of you waited until today to send me your questions. So now I've got a whole avalanche of questions. The other thing I should point out as well is that the subject matter, or the questions that I will address today, are around the subject matter related to vocal freedom. So I won't be doing stuff about ad-libbing and riffs and runs. I won't be doing stuff about tone or anything like that. I'm only going to deal with vocal freedom, how to improve your vocal freedom. So it's to bear that in mind. There are going to be other surgeries where I'll talk about those things, but today we're sticking exclusively to that particular scenario, because I want to address one thing at a time. And there are different people with different problems. Some people's problems are consistent with each other. Sorry, Sam, can't take that call. Some people's calls are consistent with each other's. And so even if you haven't submitted a question, by the mere fact that you are taking part in the surgery and watching other people will give you some kind of insight into someone else's problem. The solution or the response that I give might help you with that. No code to get into the Zoom received. Hold on, sorry guys, sorry. Someone isn't. Yeah, so to bear that in mind as well, it's really important to understand those things. So even though you're not asking questions, you may find the solution in someone else's question as well. Yeah? Okay, cool. So we have a bunch of questions from different sources, different people, based around different subject matter. And we're going to address some of them accordingly. Someone's having problems getting them in. Let me just deal with this first. Sorry, guys. Some people have not used Zoom before, so it makes it a little bit more difficult for them to navigate around it. Or perhaps I didn't even send her the link, which is what's happened in this particular case. Shame, Ade. Give me a second. Wait, what? Huh? That makes no sense. Okay, cool. I'm causing myself some problems here because there are a couple of people who don't have. There you go. Who won't know how to get in. Terrible. I've just seen one there. Fat lot of good I am. Apologies, Sam. Apologies, Letitia. My bad. Didn't mean to. Hopefully you're in now, and everybody else seems to have it. So cool. Let me see who else is trying to get in. Okay, cool. Right. So let's get going again. First question comes from Gloria Lemmy. I can't answer that. First question comes from Gloria Lemmy. And the question is, having problems maintaining relaxation when singing power notes. Now, this comes up a lot. The issue with power notes comes up a lot. Also, the issue with high notes, and there's a link between the two of them. But what I did in some cases, I would ask for more elaborate insight into what the problem was, and then address it accordingly. And in this particular instance, actually, a key part of the issue wasn't just about the power note, but actually where the vocalist was singing from. So, and I had to look at it at each question individually and address them according to what I had identified. So I asked Gloria to send me a voice clip so that I could hear her singing. The first song that she sang didn't really have any power notes. Well, it didn't have any power notes in it. So consequently, it wasn't like there was anything of power in what she was doing. So she sent me another song. And although the song had power notes in it, it was quite high and it had lots of dynamics. Although that was the case, Gloria was singing what I call from the collarbone up. So she wasn't engaging her diaphragm properly, wasn't engaging her support system properly, and wasn't singing from the soul. And now there could be a number of reasons for that. One of them is probably because she may be singing in a range or area of her voice that she's not comfortable with. And then consequently, what singers often do is try to mask that by singing lightly, if that makes sense. So rather than sing with real power, they'll sing with a light voice, which kind of defeats the object. And I again always make reference to this in terms of how that can be a problem, because you can't really teach somebody to sing properly if when they're singing for you, they're only singing from here upwards. So you're only hearing that part of the voice. And if you can hear the way that I speak now, you can only hear part of the frequency of my voice. Whereas if I open my voice right out, you get all of the weight of my voice and all of the force of my voice. And so what's happening with Gloria, she's only speaking, it's only singing up here. So I can't remember the song that she sang, but if I give you an example of a song, let me find a lyric. So let's try the John Legend song. If I sing that just up from here upwards, what would I do without your smile now? Drawing me in and you kicking me out. Got my head spinning, no kidding, can bring you down. And so I'm only singing from my collarbone up. So I'm not engaging the force of my voice. If I engage the force of my voice, I start singing, what would I do without your smart mouth? Drawing me in and you kicking me out. Got my head spinning, no kidding, I can't bring you down. So you have a different kind of dynamic and a different kind of power when you do that. So hopefully you can hear that. And that was the first issue that was occurring with Gloria's voice. And so Gloria, it's really important that you understand that singing from the collarbone up or from the shoulders up is only giving like half of the frequency or the power of your voice. So it's really important that you engage the rest of it. So making sure, so my consideration for you were singing from the voice without sufficient support that needs to be addressed. You also need to engage your breathing support. And by breathing support, I don't mean just breathing technique. I mean by making sure that when you breathe in, you breathe into the diaphragm, fill up your lungs all the way round, and that you then use that for the power and the energy that you sing with. So that means that when you breathe in, and this happens often as well when people sing, breathe in, engage their diaphragm, and then relax. So they're still not singing with the force of the power of the breath. So when you breathe in, use all of that pressure. So it's really important to understand your breathing support mechanism is essential. Also, the physical preparation. And I think this is really important. And I don't mean doing press ups and sit ups and all that kind of stuff. I mean, actually knowing that it's not just this part of your body that is engaged in it, but all of this part of your body. So making sure that you do the work with your rib cage and everything else here, all around the back, and make sure that breath really fills up so that you're getting all of that energy in. So you're preparing your body to create a sound, create a force, and create an energy that people will connect with. If you're not doing that, if you're not preparing yourself physically when you go to sing, then you're not going to get the kind of impact and effect that you're trying to get. The other thing is mental preparation. Now, mental preparation is a bit of a tricky one because, again, sometimes the reason why people only speak and sing up here is because they have some kind of blockage mentally in terms of they don't really want people to hear their voice because they're frightened of making a mistake or frightened of being judged or something like that. So mental preparation is also important. Again, I'm going to say at this point, I'm not going to talk about how you prepare yourself mentally because I'm not giving lessons. I'm just giving a surgery. These are things that people can go away and think about afterwards and then perhaps come back to me in terms of how they can do it with a lesson that will focus completely on them. So I want you to bear that in mind now, because it would be a little bit of a miss for me for you to just hear me talk about mental preparation or mention mental preparation, but not go into it in detail. But I will go into it a little bit because of the nature of it. A lot of people, a lot of singers have problems with singing because they've been told something about their voice somewhere in the past by someone, and that has stuck with them. So they have a mental block about either their voice completely or a part of their voice as a result of something that somebody says. I used to work in the building trade on a scaffold, and I used to sing all day at work. And it got to the point where, and I was a practicing or improver, and I was teaching myself to sing. And I was using the time at work to learn to sing. And I would get from some of the guys at work, why don't you shut up? You're always singing. And that itself, psychologically, can have an impact upon you. But for me, I was like, listen, I'm not trying to hear any of that. I'm trying to learn to sing. And I've got all of this space out here. Let me learn to sing in this space. So for some people, it will give you some kind of psychological edge. I've had another scenario when I was working with a guy when I was doing my very first demos. And I used to do my singing with him. We used to write at his house, he was living with his parents at the time, or with his parent. And whenever I sang my powerful, I had a really powerful voice and I had no control of it. It wasn't very refined. So whenever I sang, I would sound like I was shouting when I sang loud. And he used to be behind the keyboard, and as soon as I did a loud note, he would do that with his face. And so consequently, that played on my mind. So every time he did it, it impacted upon the way that I felt about my voice and the way that I use my voice. Until I took time out from working on writing and anything like that, and took time out to completely work on my voice. When I was confident with the control mechanisms that I had, I arranged to record the demos that we'd done, the songs that we'd written, I arranged to record them in demo. And we were going back and forward from the studio every day. And at the end of the week, after the last day's session, I dropped him back to his house. And as I got back to his house, he said to me, "You're not the best singer that I worked with, but you've come a long way down the road." Now, to him, that was a compliment, but that's what I call a backhanded compliment. But actually, because I was at the point in myself mentally, it didn't have any impact upon me. But I know that it can. So I'm saying that the mental preparation can take on a whole gambit of different things. So I didn't want to just skip over it, but to say that actually I completely understand that, but it's something that needs to be addressed individually, different people have different reasons why they have mental blocks. Okay. And the last thing, Gloria, for you was more of a technical understanding of what your voice does and can do. And we're going to get into that technical understanding thing in greater detail in a little while. So that's where I got to with Gloria. Gloria, what I'd like you to do, if you don't mind, if you still have any more questions about what we discussed, just put a note in the chat, and then we'll, if I get a chance, we'll loop back on it, so that if there's anything that you didn't understand, we can address it with a little bit more detail, hopefully. My next question or came from Angela Chukwu, and also the same question came from Adewale Adewumi. And this one is quite common. A lot of people spoke about singing high notes and losing their voice when they sang high notes. So we're going to address that one next. And again, I asked for some kind of demonstration. And sorry for a second, I'm just going to flip to Instagram. There's a lot of people waving, and I know that people feel a little bit left out when you don't talk to them. So I'm going to go back down, and I can see lots of people. Wow. Antoinette, hi. Jaden, hi. Getsugan Gunter, hi. Francis, hi. Josh McClellan, how are you, young man? Soul Sister, hi, how are you? Dong Records, greetings. Shedzri Idris, thanks for joining us. Semi Ramus, hi, how are you? Sham Tuition, how are you? Zola Lewis, hi. Ebo Girl, hi. Pinky Brown Essentials, how are you? Thanks for joining me. Underground Insight, hi. Yanis, how are you, my friends? Pinky Brown Essentials said so true. The Real Donald, hi, how are you? Augustine Michael, hi. Ginge, I think that's someone from Portsmouth, actually. Yeah, guys, thanks for joining me. So, coming on to my next point. Sorry, some people coming into the room. Singing high notes, losing voice, and long recovery. So, I want to address the elephant in the room first. And as I said to you, a lot of people talked about wanting to learn to sing high notes and learning to extend their range. And there are probably 2 or 3 facets to this. The first facet is not all voices are designed to sing high notes. That's the first thing. Secondly, you're not supposed to sing high notes all the time. That's the second thing. Third, it's really important that you understand your own vocal range. Yeah, before you start talking about singing high notes. And I think the reason why I say that and the importance of that here is that a lot of singers are put into sections and choirs to serve the needs of the choir and end up being in soprano when they're not really true sopranos. And may have a good lead voice and be given leads on songs that are too high in their range. And then and again, for all of you singers who are singing in choirs in church, you know, those services can be very long. And you could be singing for a long time, and you may have maybe 2 or 3 services a week. Now, if you're singing 2 or 3 times a week and you're singing either at the top of your range or outside of your range, and you're screaming, and that is the description that I believe Angela gave me for some of the problems with screaming, being asked to scream. If you're screaming, then you're causing damage. The more you scream, the more damage you cause. The more difficult it will be to solve that. So the first thing that I say to all of you who are concerned about high notes, find the right key for your voice. Now, if a band if a church band or any band is is good at what they do, they will be able to adapt to a key that suits your voice. Now, sometimes it might be as little as a semitone difference, key change. It will make all the difference to whether or not you can hit that song, sing that song comfortably, and do the song justice. I should put in a caveat here, which is that sometimes a semitone may make the key really strange. And so the band might not be comfortable playing it in that key. So that means you need to come down a tone, which are 2 semitone or even 3 semitone. But it's really important that you try to find a compromise to give you the best chance of singing that song in the range and the register that it should be in for you, and to give the song a kind of interpretation that it's supposed to have. Also, and the other reason why I say for you is that it's about being able to preserve your voice for repeated performances within a week. You'll note that successful singers who are successful recording artists who go on tour will maybe have 2 or 3 different keys for certain songs, because they know that those songs require all of their vocal skill set and whatever, and the voice has to be on the top of their game. So actually at those points, they might decide halfway through a set that they're not going to be able to hit that note in that key tonight. So they're going to take it down a semitone or 2 semitone. But they will have prepared that with the band and rehearsed it within a couple of keys. And then they will make that announcement by some kind of note before they perform that song. So bear in mind, even the most successful of singers will change the key of a song to suit a particular scenario. Now, there might be those of you out there, like myself, that may be naive enough to think that changing the key of a song makes you less of a singer. And I've been there. And I tell this story often, and I'll tell this story now because I think this is probably a good audience to tell it in. I auditioned for a play that was off West End in Hammersmith at the Riverside Theatre, Riverside Studios, many years ago. And I was given a showcase song in this particular play. And the showcase song was actually quite high. Actually was, and again, at that time, my technical understanding was quite limited. So I used to sing with a little bit of brute force and ignorance, even if I say so myself, and then would hope that I could hit that note rather than technically work a way of me being able to do that. And on this particular song, it had these really big notes. A burning spark at the end of the song. And I had no clue how to hit that note properly, consistently. So I could hit it once out of every 5 or 6 times of singing it. So after doing it once, the next time it would be harder for me because I've already roughened the top edge of my voice. And then the next time it would be even harder to sing. And now I'd start to screech and scream when I'm singing it. Fortunately, throughout the rehearsals, there were a lot of other songs to do in the show. So I didn't get to rehearse my song very often during the show. But when it came to near the end of the rehearsal time, was my time to rehearse the song. And on this day, obviously now rehearsing it, I'm now having to do it over and over again with the band. So I'm doing it 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times. And it's getting harder and harder to sing. And at the end of the first day's rehearsal, I got a call from the creative director, who actually at the time used to be my vocal coach. And she called me and said to me, Ade, listening to you sing this song, and I know that you're struggling with this song. I think that you should take the song down 2 semitones. I went, take the song down 2 semitones? We're not doing that. Why would I do that? All bravado and everything. Completely refused to do it. It's like, well, it's going, by the time you get to the show, doing it every night of the week, it's going to be too hard for your life. I don't care. I'll get through it. I'll get through it. And so I went through the rehearsals, and through brute force and ignorance, determination, and stubbornness, I rehearsed every day with the band and sang with the same kind of bang on my voice the whole time until and it was like my first real gig in London, my first real gig um, since moving to London, and I invited all of my friends from Portsmouth, and they came up on a coach. My brother, his friends, family, and so on and so forth, all came up. Hi, Val, how are you? Ola, hi. Leah Sounds, Posh, hi. Pinky Brown Essentials, you said excellent voice coach here, hon. Thank you. Um, so I invited all of my friends and family up to see me sing this show-stopping song at the end of the performance. And in the day of the show, Geraldine came over to me and said to me, Ade, I need to talk to you. Like, okay, she came over to me and said to me, we're not happy with the way that you're singing this song, so we're going to replace you. Now, this is the day of the show. I'm like, who are you going to replace me with? You don't have anyone to replace me. So she said, no, I'm going to sing it. And I was like, okay. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, A, I've invited everybody. They're coming up from Portsmouth in a coach to see me perform. And B, what? You must have been planning this for weeks. And then C, of course, you idiot, Ade, you should have changed the key like you were asked to do, but you were too stubborn. So those things are going through my mind. Anyway, the end of the story was, of course, I all I had to do in the show after that, I had one line, and my one line was, "Come, make we start over here, sir." And that was it. My friends all came up from Portsmouth to hear me say that one line, so I felt really stupid. And the Guardian did a review of the play, and the review of the play, they said Geraldine Connor stood in for the otherwise disposed Adiboy Adifalami. And I was like, now look at that. They've named me as being otherwise disposed. But that was the biggest lesson I ever learned about when somebody says, change the key, take it down a couple semitones, you better jump on that option. So what I'm saying is the moral of the story is never be too proud to change a key. It's really important that you're not too proud to do that. Okay, I'm going to take a look at some of the stuff that's going on here. I've got some questions and comments here. Hi, Diamond. Okay, Gloria said you go with that, what she said. Okay, cool. Itel says she's not hearing me. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah, of course. Okay, then probably Itel, that's probably something to do with your headphones or something. So hopefully you'll get that sorted out. Right. Um, so coming back to where we were with high notes. So that's my long caveat into this whole thing about high notes. So in both of these, again, I asked for people to send me recordings to get a better idea of what it was they were doing on right or wrong with their high notes. So I think both of them said they were losing control of their voice on their high notes. Their voice was breaking on the high notes. They were losing their voice after maybe one or two performances. Sounds familiar, right? And it was taking them a long time to recover. So maybe 2 days before they got their voice back. And my considerations for that were this. Having listened to what they said, asked them questions about, again, like I said, being asked to sing high songs for a choir, being asked to sing songs that were outside of your range because you're the only person who can sing that song, being asked to be in soprano when really you should be in alto, and so on and so forth. Those are the kind of scenarios that were consistent with these two particular cases. Some of the things that you can do though, vocal health is really important. Looking after your voice is really important. Before and after gigs. And will answer both of these questions in some analysis, which is going to come up later. So steaming is a very important aspect of your vocal regime. And actually probably, yes, so vocal health problems, really important. Steaming is really important. And also nebulization. So what do I mean? This is my steamer, my vocal steamer, Dr. Nelson's vocal steamer. Yes, Lynette. Lynette was one of the people that recommended that this was good. Actually, it wasn't for me at the time. It was for somebody else. It was my pastor in Nigeria. So I actually bought one for myself as well, and also a nebulizer. So they do two different things. This one gives you hot steam, pour boiling water into it here, and then draw it in through there. This is really good for keeping your voice in good condition on a daily basis. You're doing it. I do it every morning. Actually, I've done it twice today because I had a little bit of a mucusy voice this morning, so I did it twice today. So it helps to get rid of the mucus on your voice, definitely. So I do it twice. I do it once in the morning and once at night without fail. Actually, I should put in again. I had add in. One of the reasons why I'm doing it twice, and I started to do it twice, because I've been in Nigeria since the middle of March. And when in Nigeria, ordinarily, I have real problems with the air conditioning. So it tends to dry my throat out. And after 2 days, I lose my voice. I can't speak anymore. I definitely can't sing. So the steamer was my solution to that. But also you'll know that for those of you who've been following this COVID thing at all, you'll know that they recommend drinking boiling water regularly. Hot water regularly. Drinking water regularly, but certainly drinking hot water as well. So I steam to help me to ensure that I'm making sure if I get any kind of germs, I'm killing them straight away. So it works as a double thing. Now, although I recommend the steamer, some singers find the steamer is harsh on the vocal folds. So it tends to do its job, but then actually affects them so that they don't go back to their normal elasticity very quickly. And I was talking to another one of my clients who, Alison Brown, who is who's doing lead in Hamilton at the moment, or not at the moment because of the COVID thing, but she's doing lead in Hamilton. And she uses this in the mornings and uses this in between sets while she's in Hamilton, because this one is too harsh for her vocals. So uses this in between to keep everything nice and moist. And then when she gets home, she'll steam again. So first thing in the morning, last thing at night. Does that make sense? So steaming and nebulizing is really important. It helps a lot. Now, again, I have to add to that I had vocal problems for about 2.5 years. I got sick about 4 years ago. I caught what they call the freshers flu at work. I work in a university. I used to work in a university. And I caught freshers flu, and I was really sick with it. And I had 3 courses of antibiotics, and my voice would go and come and go at will. I never had any control over it for a good period of time, and I couldn't sing at all. After about a year, it started to come back, but it wasn't consistent. So I would have a voice for a day or two, then it would go. Sometimes it would be gone for a day, sometimes it would be gone for a whole week. And that kept going on. It got better to the point that maybe my voice would go, if I was lucky, twice a week, twice a fortnight. And it would only be gone for a day and a half if I was lucky, until I bought this baby. No, I have no problems at all. Not at all. In fact, the first time I've had any kind of issue was this morning, which brings me on to my next thing, diet. And I think that the reason I had problems this morning was today, sorry. I did 2 things that I haven't done for months. I had bread this morning, and I had cow's milk, and I shouldn't drink the cow's milk anyway. And I immediately had problems with my voice this morning. And that's why I ended up having the steam twice. So diet is also a really important consideration to make in terms of how it will impact upon your voice. Now, I know you'll know that you shouldn't really eat chocolate. You're not supposed to really drink milk. I'm not supposed to eat orange because I'm asthmatic and those things affect my chest, consequently my breathing and stuff. So there are certain things that you shouldn't eat and certain things you shouldn't drink. So diet is really important. And there are certain things you should supplement on. So I should bear that in mind. I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to put on my top because I'm back in the UK and it's so cold here comparatively to Nigeria. Sorry, guys. Nigeria is much warmer than the UK, and I wish I was back there already. So diet stuff is good. Supplements are really important. So again, habitually every morning, I have my cocktail drink of lemon, fresh lemon, honey, Ribena, and depending on the time of the year, I also put in there some ginseng tea, but ginseng tea extract, not a tea bag or anything like that. That really doesn't do the trick. And those things are like kind of everyday kind of regime for me, and they keep my voice in good condition. And of course, I'm pumped full of vitamin C, which is also very good from that point of view. So it's really important to bear in mind that your diet is really important, and supplementing so that you're getting the right kinds of balance in your diet is really important. And again, I would say that my preparation for my trip to Nigeria this time round has been on point because I've had no vocal problems at all. And that is because I've had my supplements, I've had my steamer, and I've got the right kind of rest. I also habitually don't put the air conditioning on in the room that I'm in. I'll put it on in another room so that I'm not getting the full blast of the air conditioning. So for all of those of you who have problems with your voice because of the air conditioning, I'd consider that as well. Another thing that I would recommend for all of you actually, that I'm preaching about something I don't do myself. So I put that disclaimer out there now. Wear a scarf, cover up your neck, cover up your throat, keep it warm. This low top stuff is not beneficial to your voice when you're singing. And especially in the winter, try to wear a scarf that covers your face so that you're not breathing in direct cold air. At least you're filtering it a little bit. I think that's really important because again, the kinds of problems that you'll have with your voice as a result of not doing those things can be subtle, but it can make an impact upon the voice when you go to sing and perform live. Something that I'm going to touch on again in a little while when it comes to someone else's question, and we'll loop back on it then. And the last point I'll make about this in terms of consideration, lessons. Singing lessons, for those of you who don't really know how your voice works or how to improve, you can't cheat it by watching videos on YouTube that'll only give you so much information. Surgeries will only give you so much information. But everybody's voice is specific. Excuse me. And everybody's voice has specific technical advantages and deficiencies. And a vocal coach will be able to identify those things and help you to find the right ways to resolve those parities. So it's really important to consider singing lessons or some kind of singing training. Even though I do video tutorials as well, I also recommend that you don't just use a video tutorial to train with. You have to supplement it with like the coach, the person who's actually teaching you the theories that they're actually putting into their tutorials. So I think it's really important for you to consider, if you really want to be serious about it, lessons, whether you do group lessons or private lessons. Taking lessons, I believe, is important because being able to ask a question and someone answer you, even if it's only to clarify what you already think, you're already at an advantage. I think that's really important. So let's come to routine. Definitely daily warm-up, absolutely necessary. Um, and I don't want to go into warm up too much, but I'll say this: with the warm up that I have, my warm ups probably run at around 35 to 45 minutes in total, because you're doing a bunch of things that start with your breathing technique. So getting your breathing ready for singing is different from breathing for speaking. And actually conditioning yourself, when I say getting your body ready to sing, remember me saying that earlier on, getting your body ready to sing requires you to start with the breathing first, because that's the foundation of everything that you'll do thereafter. So your daily warm-ups will include your breathing, humming, so that you're warming up all of the parts of your voice, all of your body that will be that of what I call the vibrators. So your mouth, your lips, your face, your back of your neck, your chest, your neck, all those parts of your voice that will vibrate as a result of humming, are all the parts of the voice of your body that help to produce the sound and help you to be more fluid, more flexible, and more dexterous in the way in which you sing. Okay, so warm up is really important. Not just doing a warm up, but knowing how to do the techniques that you're doing in a warm up, why you're doing them, and when you should do your warm ups. And I say the how because there's a right way and a wrong way to do everything. There's this theory, which is Malcolm Gladwell, 15,000 hours of for perfection. Now, 15,000 hours of doing something wrong, it just means that you're going to be doing it wrong when you finish your 15,000 hours. So 15,000 hours is fine as long as you're doing the right thing. So knowing how to do something is really important. If you're doing it wrong, you're never going to get better at it. You might get marginally better, but if you do it right, you'll be much better. And that's the difference. Why? Why you're doing it is really important. So when I teach a technique, especially the warm-ups, I'll explain why I do the warm-ups. And it's really important that you know why. It's important because if you just do them because you've been told to do them, the chances are you'll go through the motions. You're not really embracing it. You're not owning it for yourself. And therefore, you're not looking at the parameters and evaluating how well you're doing it to determine whether to improve the effect of it. So if you know why you're doing it, you'll be more able to analyze what you're doing and determine whether or not the reason why you're doing it is working for you. And if it's not working for you, then you can adjust accordingly. So the why is good. When? So I get asked this all the time. How often should I practice? When should I warm up before I do a performance, etc., etc.? Practice every day. Practice every day, because it is the most important part of what you do in terms of preparation for when you go on stage. It's like being a millionaire. You don't become a millionaire overnight unless you're lucky enough to win the lottery. You become a millionaire overnight by doing lots and lots of work, learning a trade or a specialist area, starting a business, investing, building up, and becoming to the point where you become successful. The successful point is where you start making money, you become a millionaire. So what we see is the millionaire status. What we don't see is all the work that went into it. So a good voice will not be a good voice without all the work that goes into it. So the when is really important. Every day. Practice your craft every day. So it's really important to bear that in mind. That mindset is really important. When do you perform? When do you warm up? Pre-performance or before recording? That's again, this really important question. Something that I get asked that often. So you warm up properly, probably 2 hours before you perform or you go into a studio. That's what I recommend doing. When I say properly, I mean going through your humming, your vowel passage, all that kind of stuff. Your breathing technique first, humming, vowel passage, and then practicing a song. And you start with practicing the song, and you don't sing the song full out first. You just go through the motions of the song. So you touch parts of it. You get yourself flexible. Does that make sense? And then gradually, 3, 4 times, 5th time, 6th time, 7 times. By the time you get the 8th one, you're running with it now. So you start with a jog. You start with a walk. go into a little canter, then you jog, then you run it. And that's how you should warm up your voice. Same thing to be said when you get into the studio. Same thing. You don't go straight into recording. You warm up to the song. You get into the environment and you prepare yourself that way. Same as if you're doing a live thing. Now, what do you do between the time that you warm up and you actually perform? You keep your voice warm by doing the trills. I don't personally, I don't believe trills are a good staple diet for developing your voice. They're okay for keeping you warm and stuff, but you're not really learning technical skills that you use when you actually sing. So trills are good for keeping you warm after you've warmed up properly with a good warm up. Yeah. So that's what I would do after. Do your warm up 2 hours before the gig, and then keep yourself warm after with the trills. Scarf around your neck, hot water and honey. Nothing else, just hot water and honey. Don't drink tea, coffee, anything like that. Try not to do that stuff that kind of grates and it dries out the throat a little bit. I think it's important to bear those things in mind. As part of your routine, and this is again specifically for Angela and Adewale, a compatible repertoire is really, really important. What I mean by that is that finding songs that showcase the best qualities of your voice and finding the key that showcases the best tonal qualities of your voice should be what you're aiming for. Making sure when you sing, you always are able to hit the sweet spot in songs so that when you sing this song, you make it your own. You put your own little mark on it. So compatible repertoire is really, really important. One of the things, again, coming back to choirs, the pressure that some worship leaders are under to sing everything means that they don't always get the best out of their voice. And I think it's up to the worship leader to understand more about what their voice does and doesn't do well, and appeal to the choir leader in terms of what they should do and how much of the things that they are not in their comfort zone that they should do in a set. So they manage the set according to themselves. Although you have to consider the greater good, you still have to think about, if I wear my voice out today and I can't sing for 2 days, then what are we going to do? If I wear my voice out today and I can't sing for 2 weeks, what's the choir going to do? So better that you manage your repertoire accordingly. I think that's really important. I think the last thing that for Angela and Adewale to consider is knowledge of your vocal anatomy and functionality. I think that's really important. This is a really important part of vocal technique and vocal control for everybody. Understanding the anatomy of your voice and understanding the anatomy of your body in context with your voice, because there's a lot to your voice. And it's important that you understand all the components of it in order for you to be able to manipulate things the way you should, shape vowels the way you need to shape them, position the tone so that it's in your chest or in your mid register or in your top register above the pharynx. And all of those things, you need to be able to understand your anatomy with more detail. Again, it's not something I'm going to go into here, but in my courses, we go into the vocal anatomy and stuff like that. But these are things that are really important. Actually, I didn't used to teach anatomy until about 3-4 years ago, because I realized how important it is for people to have an understanding before they even start singing. Knowing what your voice, the functionality of your voice before you start singing is really important. There's a great deal of difference between singing to speak. Sorry, using your voice to speak and using your voice to sing. And I think a lot of time we don't take that into consideration. So hopefully that will answer your question. That was quite a long evaluation. Hopefully that will have answered your question to some degree. Before I move on, I'm just going to see what we've got up here on IG. Sorry, guys, it's been a while. I don't want to neglect you or anything like that. I know there's a lot of questions here, but can I suggest If you don't get a response from me, you could send me a DM, and then to answer the question, someone just asked where they can buy the video tutorials, those kinds of things. You send the DM, I will answer your DM, because at the moment I can't multitask that well. I know I'm good at multitasking, but I don't multitask that well. Hi Augustine, Tarama, hi, how are you? Thanks for joining. Sugar Curves, okay, hi, how are you? Asher Gray, hi, thanks for joining. Posh, how are you? Jessica Banks, hi. Air Nasser, that's my son. How are you, son? Jesse Music, hi, how are you? Solomon, how are you? Thanks for joining. Man like Scoop, how are you, my friend? Guys, thanks for joining. I appreciate it. Really grateful. Right, going on to the next one. Actually, this is not the next one. This is an annex of that last question. And this is something that Letitia Boville asked in relation to high notes. And I thought it was worth addressing because it's a very good question. What is the correct technique for singing high notes? Mouth positioning, breathing, start. I think it's a really good question in terms of technique, because problems we have with your voice is one thing. Knowing how to technically prepare yourself is another altogether. So again, when we talk about, and I'll try and go through this really quickly without being too complex and without missing out things, and it makes it even more confusing. We have three basic registers: the chest register or bottom register, your mid register here, or your mid register, whatever it's really called, or your top register or head voice. And these are the positions. To engage your chest register, you need to position and place the sound or direct the sound below your collarbone. Do you hear how my voice has changed now? Because I'm now directing the sound below my collarbone. Your mid register is above the collarbone, but below the jawbone. And hopefully, again, you can hear the difference. So I'll drop down into my bottom register again, and then come back up into my mid register, like so. So that's how you control the positions. Then for your top register, the top register is above the jawbone. So you're creating the sound in the head. So it's different from if I'm in here. You can hear it's a lot lighter than if I'm in my mid register. So that's really important to understand. And that's important because if you try to sing high notes without shifting to a different register, that's where you'll get the first problems. And if you don't know how to shift or what the shift is, you won't be able to hit that high note, and certainly won't be able to hit it consistently. So it's really important to understand that. Being able to shift your registers requires you to know, excuse me, where to transition, which register you should be in, and what vowel shape or what vowel shape you have, or what way you're manipulating the vowel. So that's in terms of what you would do in terms of the registers. The next question was the mouth positioning. So the mouth positioning again depends on the tone that you're trying to create. So the mouth positioning is only part of it. Now for your upper register, the relationship between your top register and your bright tone, they're very closely linked. Let me go through that again. Bright tone, mid tone, bass tone. Bass tone, bottom register. Mid tone, mid register. Bright tone, top register. Makes sense? So there's a link between them. There's this kind of parallel between them. The other thing that you need to bear in mind is the mouth positioning, or not the mouth positioning, which is actually the question, but the throat positioning, because the mouth should be dictated to by the throat, the jawbones and the back of the throat. So for a higher note, the higher up the scale you go, you're going to do one or two things. Either you're going to smile more, that helps you lift the soft palate, and you're directing your sound up this way, out this way. So when you're singing that way, you're smiling. That's where you get all of your clarity and clear, cleanliness in your voice. So that's where you'll go if you're going to your top notes. If you're going to your mid register, then you're going to do this. So you've got a different kind of sound. So it's more round. You're going to push your pharynx out this way. So you get a different kind of sound altogether. Then this one is bright and light. That has that sound there, or this sound here. Does that make sense? I hope you can hear the difference between the two. So you have your bright sound, which is based around the A, or your mid register, which is based around the OU. And then you have the bass tone, which is based around the UGH. So now you're aiming your sound towards this part here. So you're pushing it that way. So you've got your bass tone, your mid tone, and your bright tone. So you have these three different tones, which also are related to, this is the positioning of your voice box. That's what you're doing to achieve that. The next part of the question from Letitia was the breathing. So breathing technique is standard for all of them. And I won't go into how you do them, but I'll just go into one thing you must always consider when you do the bass tone. Always, always, always use a breathing connection because of the kind of force and that you're putting on your throat. And also, there's another tone that we didn't discuss yet, the falsetto. I also would argue, unless you have a natural falsetto speaking voice, excuse me, when you sing in falsetto, you use your breathing connection. Again, I won't go into breathing connection because it's a whole nother kind of area, but I'm just telling you the kinds of things that you need to do in terms of preparation. So what I'm saying all that to give you a demonstration of coming from your mid register up through to your falsetto, up through your head voice to your falsetto. So the song that I'm going to sing starts in the bottom register, moves up, and then goes up into the falsetto. Hopefully, I'll be able to do it now because my voice is a little bit tired today. So you'll go down, oh, why don't you believe me? Someone really must have hurt you bad. No, I would never leave you moving, 'cause you're the best thing I ever had in my life. So I've gone up all the way through from you're the best thing so now I've moved into mid register. I've gone into top register, sorry. I go back to mid, ever had my. So you can hear I've gone through all of those registers through the different shapes and the different placements. So I start here. Oh, why don't you believe me? So if I put my hand on my chest here, I'll feel the vibration here. Someone really, and now I've gone into the mid register. If I put my hand here, I'll feel the vibration here. Someone really must have hurt you bad. No, I would never leave you, 'cause you're the best thing I ever had, ma. So you see that you go into different positions. So I say all that to answer the questions that Letitia posed, which are actually an annex of the question posed by Angela and Adewale. So the reason why I put it there is because it's really important in terms of answering that question and demonstrating how you're able to achieve all of those things if you know the anatomy of your voice. Okay? Hopefully that worked for all of you. I hope you all get that. Right, now I'm moving on to Sam Lascelles. Sorry, I'm losing, hold on one second. Okay, I think I've got to go back on because I've come off on Instagram. So let's see if I can get back in. I'm now live again. Thank you. So now I'm going on to Sam Lascelles, and I can hear her go, yay, my turn. Now Sam's question was, voice has changed with age. It's got lower. Does the voice require a different routine? Okay, cool. I can identify with this a lot. And you'd have heard me allude to some of the things that I have to do now that I didn't have to do before. And I say it for this. So yes, of course, the voice does change with age. It will change more quickly if you don't keep your voice in shape. Just the same as if you don't keep your body in shape, it will start to change. That's standard. So if you don't keep, if you're physically fit and physically, if you've got abs and all that kind of stuff, and you stop training, it turns to flab. Then you have to train twice as hard to get it to come back to anywhere near what it used to be. Trust me, I know. But the same is said of the voice. The voice is a muscle, just the same. So if you stop using it, you will lose it. And again, I can attest to that because remember I said before I lost my voice for 2-3 years. Before that, I'd stopped teaching for a while, so I wasn't singing as consistently or as regularly. And so you start to lose all of those things. So the answer to that question in a nutshell is yes. Does it require a different routine? It requires a modified routine, not a different routine. So the warm-up should always still be the same because that's your staple. Then when I say warm-ups, I'm talking about the warm-ups that I do. Breathing technique, humming, vowel pattern development, and then song studies. Those things are a staple diet. That's like staple diet. Then you need to think about your regime in terms of your health. So for me, you remember I said I started having problems after I had some health issues. And until I started steaming, I wasn't able to resolve the issue with me losing the top registers and bottom register. I only had mid frequencies. So steaming helped that because what I was doing, what happened is, of course, I was getting a build up of mucus on my vocal folds and on my chest and stuff like that, which was having a direct impact. Now, I say that because it didn't used to happen before. When I was young and energetic and could go into a studio session and sing all night without any problems, that was different. But now I have to pace myself much better. And I have to take care of my things differently now. So it's really important to understand that yes, with age, your voice will change. For some people, it'll just get weaker. Fortunately, mine hasn't yet got weaker. And I think I'm old enough to assume that it's not going to get really weak, even though I'm asthmatic. So that's to bear in mind. So the routine for me, as I said, steaming, breathing exercises, actual physical exercise, because my asthma is getting worse as I get older. It means that I need to be more intent with my breathing technique and my breathing practice to do the same things that I couldn't do before. It also means that I have to modify the way that I sing songs as a result of not having the breathing capacity that I once had. Do you know what I mean? So certain things will change and you just have to modify rather than use a different routine altogether. So considerations, Sam, in terms of the question you asked, alternative ways of hitting the high note, because I remember that was also part of your issue. Good diaphragm support. So making sure that you're using your breathing technique and using all of the body to prepare yourself for those notes and the notes that you're not able to hit before. Good understanding of where to place the notes and the vowel shapes associated to those. So we spoke about that a little earlier on. And like I said, daily warm up and exercise routine. So let me just go back to the alternative ways of hitting those high notes, just because it's an area that is a modification of what I just did a little while ago, which was, because you're the best thing I ever had, my love. So I went, my love. And the reason why I did that is because I believe it was Sam or one other person who said that they hit their falsetto. It was you, Sam, said you hit your falsetto with a light texture. And you don't, but you can also hit it with like a real falsetto texture, which is by raising the tongue and pushing the tongue like my love, which is a very different sound to my love, which someone else asked me a question about twanging, and that is actually that's the foundation of the twang. Yeah, so you're actually using the tongue to press it up that way. The reason why I say it's a true falsetto technique, a true falsetto will actually speak like that. So when they speak with that raised tongue. Fantasia is a perfect example of that. So that's a true falsetto. So you can utilize the falsetto, will give you more power, because the my love is an accurate note, but it doesn't have much power. My love will give you a different kind of sound and different kind of power. You can also use your mask, which is you're using, instead of going all the way up, so you shape your pharynx at the top, instead of going straight up, you push it forward into your mask, but you control the sound from here. So you only end up in the mask, so you're compressing the sound. My love, which isn't so clean, but you'll still get it. Ma, ma, ma. So you've got those three different ways of creating the falsetto or the high note that you were talking about before. So you have those options that allow you to do different things. Okay, hopefully that answers your question and gives you an understanding of different ways in which you can use your voice. Okay, let me go over here a second, please, guys. Sorry. Right, so people are back in. Any notes? Sorry, someone said, so if you stop singing and prematurely because voice is damaged, how do you retrain your voice? That's supposed to say retrain your voice. Again, pace it slowly, build it up again with your daily warm-ups. Pick your song studies very carefully so that you're building your voice back up. And I always say build from the bottom. So your bottom register first. Whatever the bottom range of your register of your range is, start there first. Build up the mid and then build up the top. And then develop them together. Don't try to rush back into everything that you were doing before straight away, because you'll find that, first of all, you'll have insecurities anyway. Second to that, you will have some weaknesses and you need to kind of reconfigure the reasons why you caused the damage in the first place. So you have to find the technical responses to those problems. So you should bear that in mind as well. But again, I will also add to that, do it with a singing teacher. Don't try and do it yourself. Where can I get the voice steamer? Amazon. Remember again, Dr. Nelson's in voice steamer or inhaler, it's called. Yeah, I'm going to answer those questions. Anyway, we're back over here, and now we're going to zip down to Letitia Bogle, who had some really, 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 really good questions. But we couldn't do all of them, and hopefully we'd have addressed some of them in some of the other questions that came up, because they kind of dovetailed into some others. Do I need to overpronounce when singing? When singing, I've realized that I have to overpronounce some words. So, question, do I need to overpronounce when singing? I think the term overpronouncing is relative. It's really relative. Is it overpronouncing if it gets you to the end result? It's relative. Is it overpronounced in the sense it's not how you normally speak? Probably likely. But is it overpronouncing? That's relative. And as I've said that, I'll give you an example. Anita Baker was a singer who had a very unique way of creating a sound and a very unique way of controlling that sound. So you sang around here. So the way she sang was the way you would speak that way. So when she sang, it was very round and very swirly. So she would sing, with all my heart, I love you, baby. Stay with me and you will see my arms. So it was all there. Rather than go up to the natural pronunciation, my arms, which is where you would naturally go with an arms word, the vowel arms, arms. She would sing, arms will hold you, baby. Not baby, baby. So she's certainly over exaggerating. Ironically, she was told that she would never be successful because of the way she sang, except, of course, she's extremely successful because of the way she sang. And I think that's really important to bear in mind as well, that again, it's relative. Overpronunciation is relative. No one could overpronounce more than Anita Baker, and it worked wonders for her. However, having said that, you really do have to understand how the voice works to get the consistency in what is called overpronouncing. Now, I have the pleasure of hearing Letitia sing every Saturday at church. So I know Letitia's voice very well. And I have observed times when she uses her pronunciation, and I won't say overpronounce, I say uses a pronunciation manipulation to good effect. And I've also observed where she will not use it and it will be to her detriment. And I'm speaking directly to you, although I'm speaking in the third person. So that's something to bear in mind, which should also answer your question, which is that we should be constantly manipulating the way in which we use our voices, the way in which we form vowels, in order to remain consistent with what we're doing. So remember before when I said that if I want to speak in my bottom register, I need to place the sound back down here, bass tone. So I'm already using a different type of vowel shape. And it's more around the UGH, so it's and that's how I get that sound. Turn off the light and light a candle. So I'm pushing it all that way. But I'm manipulating the sound by controlling the vowel and the position. Without that, even if I tried to, certain words are going to go up. Turn off the light and light a candle. Do you understand? So it's going to go into different places because we're only singing within our speech patterns. Which brings me on to the next point. Our speech patterns are very limited. The way we use our voice for speech means we probably only use about 5 to 10% of its true capacity. And when we sing, we use way more of our voice. Therefore, if our dominant patterns are our speech patterns, if how we use our voice 95% of the time is for speech, and then when we sing, we expect to sing a completely different sound, then we're somewhere along the lines of deluding ourselves. And actually, if you want to sound the way that you speak, you'll probably sound a little bit like David Essex. Hold me close, don't let me go. Oh no, 'cause yes, I love you and I think that you know. Do you know with your love light shining? And I'm happy for you want to sound like that, but that's not what I teach. So, so it's really important to understand that if you want to sound the way you speak, then fine. But if you want to sound good as a singer, you have to transition from English to Singlish. And I coined that phrase last week when I was talking to a student. So you have to sing with different patterns. It's really important to understand it. So in answer to your question, teacher, absolutely. Considerations for you. It's not the words that you're controlling, it's the vowels. So where you said about changing the pronunciation of words, it is the vowels that are important. The way in which you shape the vowels will dictate how you sound. And to the reason why I had to elaborate on that is because Letitia said that she was told when she was younger that she had to enunciate more and under exaggerate her vowels. Now, enunciation, pronunciation, I should say, comes with the lips and teeth, with the consonants. But we don't use them, or we shouldn't be using them so much when we sing because they get in the way. The way in which we have to sing, the fluidity, the dexterity, the control that we need to be able to sing with means that we need to get the consonants out the way, because we don't create any sound with the consonants. The sound is created with our voice, with our vowels. The way in which we produce sound is with the A, E, I, O, U. The consonants we produce with our lips and teeth don't make any sound until we either end with or begin with the sound of a vowel. P ends in E. K ends in A. S begins with E. J ends in A, and so on and so forth. So if you try to pronounce those consonants without the vowel, that's what you'd get. So all they do is give an accent to the vowel. So over pronouncing the consonants is detrimental to your singing, in the sense that you're over pronunciation, you're pushing the sound too much in your mouth, not giving you the ability to manipulate your vowels and your throat in the way that you need to. So that's the first thing. As well as that, the consonants also get in the way in terms of the fluidity and the dexterity. So if you're singing, I'm trying to think of a song where fluidity is really important. It's gone. We'll come back we'll come back to that in a minute. Sorry, guys. I know you were hoping for me to sing right there, but it's gone. Come back to that in a minute. So making sure that the consonants don't get in the way is really important. Just want to finish on that. Bear in mind, though, that there are only 6 vowels. There are 5 really, but we have an extra one. So you've got A, E, I, O, U, and Y when it's pronounced like an I or an E. We call it the 6th vowel, which means basically, once you control those 6 vowels, you control everything that you need to do with your voice. All of the words, there are thousands and thousands of words. All you need to do is focus on those 6 vowels. And that's gold dust in terms of how you contextualize. Because if you look at a song and concern yourself with, oh my God, how do I get all of these words in? It's not that important. What you really want to work on is the vowels themselves. Yeah, that's really where your control and your focus is going to come from. That's how you're going to become fluid. That's how you're going to become dexterous. That's how you're going to be able to transition smoothly. And I'll give you an example again. I'll use the same example. Actually, no, I'm going to do 2 examples. So in terms of syllables and in terms of consonants getting in the way, there's a song, old now, but when it first came out, Whitney Houston sang, "It's not right, but it's okay." Now the lyrics of the song are, "Friday night, you and your boys go out to eat." Right? Now, the way that it's sung, if you try to sing that, "Friday night, you and your boys went out to eat," the consonants get in the way. But actually, for the flow and the syncopation of the song, the way in which it was sung was, "Friday night, you and your boys went out to eat." So the vowels, the consonants were irrelevant. "Friday night, you and your boys went out to eat." So you only got 4 syllables out of consonants out of the whole lot. Friday night, you and your boys went out to eat. So 4. With all of those vowels. Friday night, you and your. Do you understand? So the consonants become secondary to the flow and the syncopation in that sense. I think that's the first thing you should bear in mind. And the second thing is the song that I demonstrated earlier on in terms of the control mechanism in the song and in the transition. If I sing, "'Cause you're the best thing I've ever had," that's much harder for me to do because I'm now landing every time. "'Cause you're the best thing I've ever had." So that's much harder for me to do. I don't want to land. I want to be able to jump up onto the next one with light touches. So I don't land, I glide. "'Cause you're the best thing I ever had." And that's the difference. So actually consonants and landing, consonants and landing are detrimental to your dexterity and your control. So hopefully that will address that part of it. The other thing we wanted to consider, Letitia, is that the vowel passage is the key to gaining control and consistency. And you have heard me mention this in my warm-ups. I talk about breathing technique, humming, and vowel passage. And the vowel passage is basically controlling your vowels all the way up your range from your bottom note, A, O, all the way up to your top note. So controlling all the way, but all the way in between, all the notes in between. You go all the way up the range, controlling your vowels, learning how to manipulate, tweak, and change the shape of your vowels to create consistency. So the way in which I sing the bottom note, A-O, and the way in which I sing A-O, I need to change and manipulate the way in which I shape that and control the volume, the velocity, and a whole number of other things. So it's really important to do your vowel passage development regularly, consistently, to ensure that you get the kind of fluidity that you would normally get, which is why I said two things. First of all, that trills are not a replacement for that. Absolutely not. Trills don't give you that kind of control and that kind of focused, purposeful training. And also scales. Scales also won't give you that because they're doing a different kind of thing. Scales, actually, the true purpose for scales is to teach you how to move from, like, to know the notes that are in the chord. Does that make sense? So really what you're doing is training your ear. It's not actually developing your vocal muscles. That's why the vowel passage is important and why it's so unique. So I said vowel control is important in gaining control and consistency. However, tone formation and manipulation and placement is a very important tool to embrace. So I would say that Letitia has currently partially embraced vowel manipulation and tone manipulation. And I think in what she said, she will manipulate some things like the Y's sometimes. But there's a whole Pandora's box to open up. And again, just to give you context to that, in terms of tone and coloring, I said this quite often. If I want to paint a masterpiece and I have, let's imagine a Van Gogh, right? And you have, and I would say the devil's in the detail. We won't use that term. And the detail is really important. That the eyes, the pupils, the nose, the nostrils, the forehead, the hair, the wrinkles on the forehead, the blemishes on the skin, the teeth, and all those things, all that detail. And you take a yellow paint pot and a paintbrush and you paint everything with that yellow paintbrush. What will you see at the end of it? Nothing but a yellow blob. So if you, as a singer, only use one tone and one choice, you're only giving us the foundation. That's it, yellow paint, and then you're going to draw the picture on it. We don't see a picture yet. We don't see definition, we don't see character, we don't see nuance, we don't see anything. In order to do that, you need to have a much broader palette. So you need your yellows, your greens, your blues, your reds, your whites, your blacks, and also you need the mixture of them. So if I want to get, if you think about a Van Gogh, and you think about the colors and the way in which they all blend into each other, but also stand out from each other, the whites and the reds and the blues, and the way in which they give definition. If you think about creating a masterpiece when you sing and use Van Gogh as a reference point, will give you some kind of idea of the amount of color and texture and variety that should go into that. Hopefully that will answer your question for you. Okay, cool. So that's pretty much it. And I think we've done way more than 45 minutes for sure. But let me, before we sign out, see whether there are anything here. Dairy products do affect the vocal cords, yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yes, Sam. Thanks for that. I'll see that. Okay, cool. So, should I? One more thing. So I'm going to deal with a vibrato just because I've had a special request on it. Um, the overuse of vibrato. I've had this experience myself. How I learned to teach to sing came in two phases, and how I learned to sing came in that as well. Remember, I said to you earlier on, I used to sing every day on the scaffold. I learned to sing originally by singing along with Alexander O'Neill, Luther Vandross, Faye Jackson, blah, 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 blah. And I took lessons from a vocal coach. Actually, let's not go into vocal coaches. I've had some lessons with some frightening experiences, believe me. I've had singing teachers who were piano players, really, excellent piano players, but would teach you to sing by asking. I actually had an experience where I had a teacher ask me to sing Greatest Love of All. And it was a song that I was learning, they were teaching me. Or that was one of the songs that I was learning to improve my voice in. And went to the lesson this 1 week, and it was really hard to sing this song, really strained. And at the end of it, he turned around and said to me, "Oh, I did it in the original key. I just wanted to see whether you could do it." Now, like, needless to say, I never went back to that person. I had an, I won't go into another one. I won't go into that one because no cuss words on here. So vocal coaches are very, yeah, very interesting bunch of people, some of them, but we won't go into that in too much of a political statement. But vibrato. Now, after learning to sing, I learned to sing very good coach by the name of Rafe, who sadly passed away many years ago, who was very, very good and taught me a lot of my early understanding of tone, breathing technique, texture, etc., etc. And I built upon that. Now, what I did was I became really geeky. I was really fascinated and impressed by the way that he unfolded singing, as it were, demystified it for me. And it inspired me to say, I want to learn to teach. I want to teach people to sing. And I said, but I'm going to teach Black people. And Black people are really, really hard to please. So I better know what I'm doing before I try to teach people to sing. So I committed to spending as much time as possible learning about my voice. So I would go to work and I bought myself a 4-track recorder. Yeah, I'm going back a very long time. Yes, okay. Some of you don't even know what 4-track is. 4-track recorder, microphone, and a preamp that I put the microphone through. I used to come home from work every day and practice, record myself singing the songs. And then I would compare takes. So I'd compare this take to that take, and I'd compare this take to the one I did yesterday. And the things that I liked that sounded good, I'd make notes. And the things that I didn't like, why did that sound like that time and not this time? So I'd just make notes. I was like a mad scientist. But in doing that, I learned lots and lots about the different layers. There's so many layers to peel back. It's like an onion, so many layers to pull back. But in recording myself, I recognized one day that I was singing and everything had vibrato. So if I was singing like, let me hold you tight, if only for one night, let me keep you near. So everything had vibrato on. And it got to the point that it was way too much. I listened, I heard it one day, I was like, whoa, you got so much vibrato on everything. So I had to force myself to stop using so much vibrato. But I went to the extreme. I stopped using vibrato. Unwittingly, I stopped using vibrato altogether. So then one day I'm listening to my vocals and I'm hearing, hold on a second, you don't have any vibrato at all. So now I had to train myself to use vibrato. Um, and so I have a different way of understanding how vibrato works as a result of that. But Sam, what I would say was when you were singing, what you're doing is not, and you mentioned the old church singers and how they have this vibrato. Yeah, you're not that bad. You're not there yet. But when we get to that age, that's what it will sound like to the youngsters. I've just thrown that out there now. Um, but what you're doing is you're kicking your vibrato in too early, if that makes sense. So it should be something that is a control mechanism, and it's there to help you to modulate the note cleanly so that you don't fall flat, but also so that you can include and lift out. So if I sing, let me hold you tight, I'm only putting it on the end. Tight, if only for one night. Let me keep you near. So I'm only using it sparingly. And so you need to get used to sustaining notes. La, controlling it out like that rather than la, which sounds like it's being forced all the time. When it sounds like it comes in too early, it sounds pushed. You know, sometimes you talk about the timing. You come behind the beat, in front of the beat. Sounds like you're coming in front of the beat with the vibrato. That makes sense. You need to take a step back and come in, just ease your way into it. So that was the only thing I would say about it. It's not that it's overused, but that it comes in too early. You don't need vibrato on every line, that's for sure, on every note. You do want to control the end of your phrases with vibrato, but you want to make sure that it's subtle, that it's not in your face. Something that people should feel, not necessarily hear. Does that make sense? Okay, good. Okay, cool. I think I'm going to wrap it up there because I need a break. Guys, thank you very much for tuning in. Couple things I want to say before I go. If you'd be so kind, for all of you, number one, for everybody who's already registered for the lockdowns and the Gospel Singers Bootcamp and all that kind of stuff, please add my mobile number to your contact so that we can send the messages to you directly. WhatsApp have this new feature, which is that if you send a group message or a broadcast, it will only be delivered to those people who are in your contacts. So what we have to do at the moment is painstakingly send an individual message to every one of you, and there are like 500. So the bigger the database gets, the more work it is. So I want to like alleviate work so I can spend more time doing these kinds of things. So that's the first thing, please, if you would be so kind as to add that to your contacts. Second to that, for all of you who are on Zoom now, would you be so kind as to follow the Voice Coach UK on Instagram, please, and on YouTube, the Voice Coach UK. You can also do Facebook if you want, but I'm not really a Facebook fan, but hey, there you go. So if you do those two things, I'll be really grateful for that. And if you have any feedback, anything that didn't work in terms of the surgery, the information that you got, the questions, or the process for taking in questions, any feedback in that regard, feel free to send me a message. Oh, one more thing, please, now that the surgery is over, please, I beg, please don't bombard me with questions. Because what ends up happening afterwards, people start asking me questions, expecting me to spend more and more time. I'm giving my time freely now, but this is my living. So please understand that I am not Rockefeller. I have a family to feed and I need to put a roof over my head. So if you really want to know something, please take a lesson or a consultancy or something like that. Please don't think that I'm being rude if I don't answer your questions afterward, because it takes a lot of work and a lot of time to do this stuff. And to have to then be answering questions after is a little bit too much overkill for me. So again, hope you don't think I'm rude, but please, please, please don't, after the session is over, please don't send me a bunch of questions. Is that okay? Cool. Lastly, I think is you will get a notification about the next surgery and the subject matter of it within about 5 days, I imagine. So just look out for that in your emails and in your WhatsApps. And I look forward to catching up with you again soon. Thank you very much for your time. Take it easy. God bless. Instagram, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for joining me. And thank you for your patience. I appreciate it very much indeed. Guys, you take care. Yeah, God bless.